Hi everyone, sorry we had some technical difficulties earlier, but we'll get kicked off now. Today's webinar is on the importance of payment defaults. Payment defaults are a great way to try and collect some outstanding amounts. It's a great way to have a point of escalation in your internal collection process. And we're going to walk you through why default, how to default, and the importance of defaulting today. My name's Matt Jackson. I'm the National Sales Manager here at CreditorWatch. I've been at CreditorWatch for close to 6 years now. I was one of the founding employees at CreditorWatch. You can see me over in the top right-hand corner, young, sprightly, and throwing a shooter, which is pretty cool. Outside of CreditorWatch, I race Ironman triathlon, and the photo in the bottom left there was taken about 2 minutes after I'd finished, and I was a bit giddy, so excuse the weird face. So before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. There's a question box that you can use at any stage. We've got some staff members standing by to answer any of your questions. If we don't get it done during the webinar session, we can always contact you after or reply to the email that you provide. Slides are going to be available over the next 24 hours, so you'll be able to review this. And today's session will be probably 15 or 20 minutes now, just because we're running a little bit over time with the technical problems. So what we're going to cover today, we're just going to look a little bit about CreditorWatch as always, as we quite often have people who don't use CreditorWatch joining these webinars. Look at some recent stats and finding around defaults and adverse types of information. Look at some debt collection tools and how to best use a default in your collection process. I'll then show you how to actually register a default, and then we'll go quickly through a case study at the end. So about CreditorWatch, we're a full functioning commercial credit bureau, which means we have credit information on all entities with an ABN or an ACN. This information we get from a number of publicly available and databases. Then we also add some proprietary information on top also. CreditorWatch being a full service, we help you do a few things. First of all, we help you acquire customers in a faster and more efficient manner through our online application called Apply Easy. We then allow you to do a credit report or a credit check, and that's really a snapshot in time of, do you want to do business with that customer today? As equally as important to that is credit monitoring, and that will proactively send you alerts on your current customers and let you know if things change. Very rare is it that a customer will give you a call and let you know that they've been taken to court by another supplier, they have had a default, for example, registered against them, or they're even sometimes things as little as their status changing at ABR or ASIC, so that monitoring proactively sends you those alerts. We're also now doing PPSR registrations through a portal called PPSR Logic, which is a great product to help you register and maintain your PPSR. We then have a product called Debtor Logic, which is all about looking at your age trial balance and helping you identify your best customers, so ones you potentially might want to extend more credit to, and your riskiest customers, so the people who are either using you as a bank, or you may be a key supplier and they're starting to pay other people late, which is an early warning sign that they might be having cash flow problems. And finally, as we'll go through today as well, the debt collection tools, as it fits in very, very nicely with the defaults that we're going to talk about. So just some general stats around defaults. 91% of our customers surveyed said that they decline a credit application if there's a payment default present on the credit profile. I'm surprised it's not slightly higher, but what we find is that over 50% of the entities that have a default on their credit profile go into administration within 18 months. That's a staggering statistic. So if you get an alert for an entity with a default, it's something that you need to watch closely. Even if the dollar value is of a small amount, people used to ignore the dollar values, maybe less than $1,000. But what we find is they're a really early warning sign that someone's having cash flow problems. They're starting to default on that B and C level supplier, and that is the beginning of the road to insolvency, essentially. Some Really, other staggering facts around this is a director who's had a previously failed business is 2.5 times more likely to have another one, and a director who's had a previous court action is 5 times more likely to have another one. So if you're seeing these types of adverse information on a credit report or coming through as an alert, please sit up and take notice of them before it's too late. Now we're just going to cover some basics around defaults because I know not everyone is 100% familiar with them. So a default is essentially a black mark on a credit file that lasts for up to 5 years. They're all registered by our 50,000 members, and it essentially does a couple of things. First of all, it allows a point of escalation in your own collection process. So when you've sent letters, you've made phone calls, and you're not getting any result, a default is a great way to let someone know that you're serious about collecting a debt. It also allows you to spread the word of late paying customers. Because all of our members monitor their customers, if you register a default on someone today, anyone else dealing with that entity is going to get an alert within the next 24 hours. So it's not the next time that they go to get credit, like with some of the other bureaus. It's all about spreading the word as quickly as possible, because they're not really going to get credit elsewhere if they can't afford to pay their bills, unless they're supplier hopping typically. I find that they're best used in conjunction with the CreditorWatch final demand letter, and there's a reason for this. It's all about escalation in your collection process. So what we recommend is using that demand letter. It has CreditorWatch logo on it, and it goes out on your letterhead, and it basically explains the threat of a default and why it's important that you don't have one on your credit profile. Now, not all users are educated around defaults and the negative connotations with them. So that letter gives them a really good opportunity to understand it. And the most important thing on that letter is the time frame. You can set a time frame. We recommend usually between 5 and 7 business days for payment to be made. Now, if you're going to use the threat of a default, the most important thing you do is carry through with that. So if payment isn't made within those 5 to 7 days, whatever you stipulate on that letter, it's important that you register the default. Now, what I also like to do, as it doesn't cost you to view credit reports on CreditorWatch, I like to print off a report of that entity with the shiny new default that you've just lodged, send it to them with another final demand letter, and let them know that that default's occurred and it's popped up on their credit profile. I can guarantee that they'll give you a ring pretty quick smart. It's a really good way to get in contact with people who have typically been avoiding you. A really good thing about the defaults is it really stops supplier hopping. Now, the good thing about credit teams is they just want people to pay their bills on time, no matter where they're from or whether they're competitors, etc. So by lodging a default, it warns other businesses that they're potentially having cash flow problems. So it's all about stopping customers having that habitual cycle where they rack up a certain amount of debt, they get stopped credit on a supply that they're using and then coming to someone else. So it's really important that we stop that vicious cycle, because it ends up catching up with them in the long run, and then multiple people get taken for a lot of money, which is not ideal. So what happens if the default is paid? And ultimately that's the aim of these defaults. The most important thing to do is just update the status. So it goes from unpaid to settled. It will still remain on their credit record for 5 years, but it affects their credit score and their credit rating less if it is paid. So that's the most important part around the payment and updating the defaults where possible. Who can see the defaults? Now, they're seen by and contributed by also our 50,000 members. We have a huge customer base of all shapes and sizes in terms of size of business. So it's all about contributing this information for the benefit of everyone else also, plus helping you get paid along the way. And I'll show you how to register a default very shortly. So we're just going to go through a quick poll question. Have you registered a default previously in the last 6 months? They're a really good tool. I've just got to find my poll here. They're a really good tool to get things paid. So if you could just quickly complete the poll there, you'll see it pop up on your screen. I'll just leave that running for a second as we continue on. Now that's a really nice segue into those debt collection tools. So we've done plenty of webinars on the debt collection tools previously. The main thing that I want to talk about is making sure with the defaults that you're letting customers be aware that the default's going to occur. There's no point having a bark without a bite, and that's essentially what the defaults allow you to do. The defaults are really designed just to help you have that point of escalation. It means if you are going to use a debt collector, you know that all the debts you're sending across are genuine. The ones that people typically get a little bit annoyed about is the ones that you've chased and chased and chased, but they haven't paid. You pass it to a debt collector and they send one letter and it gets paid. And it's that point of escalation that really gets that letter paid. It's that brand name. And that's what our final demand letter in our collection tools allows you to do. It has the CreditorWatch logo on it for a reason, and it explains the threat of a default. So that really allows us to help you trying to get things paid on time. I'm just going to close that poll off now. So what are the requirements around a default? First of all, the minimum dollar value is $150, and the defaults have to be greater than 60 days overdue. Those of our customers who pay on credit card, they're typically our smaller to medium-sized business customers. You basically just have to verify your account through our internal sales team. You will get a letter sent out to you, and you can verify that. And you also have to upload a proof of debt. So that's typically a statement or an invoice, something showing that the debt is accurate, true and accurate. CreditorWatch also goes to some pretty good measures to make sure that all the defaults on our system are true and accurate. So all of the defaults are viewed by someone at CreditorWatch. We clarify anything if we feel that it's incorrect. And if there is a dispute around the defaults, we have a formal dispute resolution process. And the whole idea is really just to connect the debtor and the plaintiff to get the debt paid. We don't make rulings on anything around the dispute or the default, but what we do is try and help our members get paid if the debtor does come to us and complain. And that's ultimately what the whole process of the default is. Just some general key benefits. We've obviously talked about recovering the debts sooner. Now, it also has a really valid point. If you've written any debts off over the last 18 months, 2 years, send them a final demand letter with the threat of a default. It's amazing how many come out of the woodwork. For you might have written that debt off, and it's basically free money in the door. It's great for your DSO. It's great for your bottom line. And it's a really good way to get some free cash, essentially, that you probably had already said goodbye to. It's also important to put defaults on to warn other businesses. Even if a company has gone into insolvency, I really recommend placing defaults. The reason being is with our cross-directorship feature, those defaults will follow that director, even if they start up and open a new business. So it's all about creating that background profile of a director to stop them potentially having a risky business in the future and avoiding that Phoenix activity, which we talk about a lot. Defaulting is really easy to do, and I'll jump in and show you an example of how to do that now. And you're also able to register multiple defaults at once. So we allow you to do it individually, but you can also do it in bulk, which is a really good way to look at maybe the defaults you've written off in those last 18 months, send a list through and send the demand letters out associated with that. I'm just going to jump into CreditorWatch now and show you where it's best to register a default. So to do it on a single business, all you have to do is look up a business by typing in the account name, for example. Once the profile loads, just under the Monitor for Changes button, there's a Register a Default section. When you click that, it pops up with this screen, and it really just only asks you for some very basic information. So first of all, when the payment was due, we've got a nice little calendar that pops up here. So just say it was due on the 30th of August, and the amount associated with the invoice. Now for our credit card paying customers, you'll also be asked to upload a proof of debt. So that's that statement, invoice, any kind of paperwork that you've got surrounding the debt, we recommend that you upload it at this stage. And it's as simple as clicking that button, register a default, and within 24 hours, typically, the default will be viewed and approved by one of our team. So it's a very quick and easy process to do. The most important part about that is when that default's registered, anyone else dealing with that company will get an alert in the next 24 hours. If you want to do registrations in bulk, we've added a new feature to the dashboard, which is the home page that you come to when you sign into CreditorWatch, and allows you to register defaults on multiple entities if you're a Xero or MYOB customer, or if you're providing your age trial balance to CreditorWatch, your ATB. And it's this new feature down here. All you do is click View. We pull out the accounts that have a due date greater than 60 days. So it's automatically complying to our rules. And what you're able to do is tick the entities that you would like to register a default on. So you don't have to do all of them, obviously, but you'd probably pick the ones that you are wanting to default, and then you click that register default button. So it's a really good tool to be able to register defaults in bulk, but also allows you to, I guess, keep your ledger up to date, make sure people are paying on time, and allow you to get that done in an efficient manner. We're just going to look at a case study quickly. This one's done by a business called Ward Packaging. They used CreditorWatch Default to get in a debt that they'd had outstanding for, I think it was around 9 months. It was quite an old debt. They were trying to collect off for quite a while. They'd previously gone through the litigation process with a number of other customers. And as we all know, that's extremely time consuming and expensive. And the dollar value of the debt really has to be worth it. It usually has to be over about a couple of grand to make that process worthwhile. So they decided to start using CreditorWatch defaults, and they got a fantastic result around some of the outstanding accounts that they had. So this case study is available online for you to read a little bit more in depth. But yeah, I really recommend giving the defaulting a go. It has a great strike rate. Here's some just other general client testimonials from various size businesses. It's all about allowing these businesses to have a point of escalation in their collection process and allowing them to use our defaults to effectively collect those outstanding amounts. You can download our case study today. This webinar will also be available online via our website within the next 24 hours. So if there's anything I spoke about that you missed, please jump back in and have a look. I really like to thank you for your time today. It's been a great session around defaulting. I think it has huge importance in businesses. It allows that additional point of escalation when you're talking to debtors. It allows you to have that bite with the buck, I dare say. And used in conjunction with our debt collection tools, it's really, really effective, especially if you're looking at older debts you might have potentially written off to get some cash flow back into your business, or whether it's more on a day-to-day basis of debtors who don't pay. I'll just mention one more thing. It's a really good way to re-educate your customers or your debtors that paying 60 or 90 days late is not the best way, or not what you're going to accept anymore. Typically, businesses do get a bit of a feel for if they really do have to pay when the due date occurs, or if you're happy to let it get out to 30, 60 or 90 days. So by sending these letters in the debt collection tools and then using the threat of a default, it really allows you to re-educate your customers on when they need to pay their bills and get you put back to the top of the pile rather than halfway down or at the very bottom. So it's a very useful tool in that. Now, defaulting is obviously not for all of your customers. It's not probably for those ones that pay at a certain date, but it does definitely help re-educate that process as well. So please use your discretion with it, but it is a really good tool to use it. Thanks again for today. I really appreciate it. Sorry about the technical difficulties early, and we'll send some more information around our next webinars in the coming weeks. Thank you so much.